I'm a big wrestling fan. Who's not? I've been telling all my wrestling mates here in Malaysia to forget Drew McIntyre and Roman Reigns and just give focus to Adam Cole. Maybe the
Uh,
cause would help if they knew the real origins of Adam Cole. How did you start off in pro wrestling?
Yeah, yeah. Well, growing up, I was a massive fan. I remember the first time I saw Stone Cold Steve Austin versus The Rock, WrestleMania 15. That was when I became a fan. But then 2 years later, at WrestleMania 17, The Rock Austin 2, and the Houston Astrodome, 67,000 people, when they erupted when Stone Cold hit the ring that night, I got goosebumps. I get goosebumps every single time I talk about it. And in that moment, I decided I need to be a pro wrestler. So fast forward as far as actually how I got involved. I lived really close to Philadelphia, like an hour and a half, and I would drive and go and check out these independent shows. And there was an independent company called Combat Zone Wrestling that I had checked out. And long story short, I was a senior in high school. I had expressed my interest in wanting to be a pro wrestler someday. And I started my senior year of high school training in the infamous ECW arena for Combat Zone Wrestling. So again, I hadn't even graduated high school yet, and I was already in there trying to learn the ropes and learn as much as I could, and traveling on the weekends to help set up rings, set up the chairs, and just kind of show my face and get out there as much as I could.
It's been known that Shawn Michaels is one of your idols. Did you ever meet him in person? Do you always meet him at the performance center?
Yeah, yeah. So I had never met Sean prior to coming to the Performance Center. He did sign an autograph for me one time. There was a there was a Raw that I went to when I was a kid. I was like maybe 12 or 13, and I had taken a cassette tape and strung it out with all the cassette that was in it, and tied a packet of paper to it and fished it down. And Shawn Michaels signed the paper for me. I still don't think I've told him that story, but that was my only interaction with him as a fan. But then meeting him and getting to work with him at the Performance Center, it's been invaluable. I've said before, and knock on wood, I hope this doesn't happen, but if I were to stop working at WWE tomorrow, one of the biggest takeaways and one of the things that I'm most thankful for is the chance I've had to work with Shawn Michaels. To me, he is the greatest professional wrestler of all time. He's a great good guy. He's a great bad guy. Everybody he's in the ring with, he makes them better. So yeah, getting to work with him has been priceless, priceless.
But watching you as a good guy or a bad guy, one thing's for sure is your entrance is very iconic. I read somewhere that it has to do with Chris Jericho and Joey Mercury, is it? But
Yes.
for here in Malaysia, they might not know it. How did of course, the boom, and then of course the Adam Cole baby came about?
Yeah, so the boom is really funny because it was just kind of on a whim. So we have rehearsal at WWE NXT where we obviously, to make sure the cameras, they want to make sure they get your entrance just perfectly. And at one point, I was just messing around, and I got up on the apron, and I knew the Undisputed Era song at that point, and I just pointed at myself and said boom. And Road Dogg saw that, and he said, "Hey, you should definitely do that like tonight." And I'm like, "Yeah, I think you're right. I think I should." And I did it, and then it ended up sticking, kind of like how Adam Cole Bebe did eventually. The Adam Cole Bebe story is a little bit more intricate in the sense of, Chris Jericho with this saying, "Come on, baby," like really obnoxiously. I loved that. And I remember I was, again, early in my career, I was on an independent show for Maryland Championship Wrestling, MCW, in Baltimore, Maryland. And Joey Matthews, or Joey Mercury in WWE, he was on the show. And he was in the main event that night. And he kept walking around and throwing his arms in the air, like his fists in the air like this. And he would just go, Joey Matthews, over and over again. And me, I was like, that's genius, in the sense of, if you're a fan or not a fan and you happen to go to a wrestling show, the one guy you're going to remember is the guy who yells his name over and over and over again. So that was kind of how I got the idea of starting to do Adam Cole Bebe. But honest to God, I did it for years where nobody did it with me. Nobody yelled it with me. They would just boo or whatever. And then somehow, somewhere along the lines, it stuck, and people really liked yelling it with me. So
Yeah, I'm glad you start with it, but were you ever surprised that it got so over with the fans now?
yes, absolutely. And I would say the most surprising moment for me was my debut in NXT. Because I remember I showed up, I attacked Drew McIntyre. I stood alongside Kyle O'Reilly and Bobby Fish. And I remember we were standing there, and I was so nervous that night because I was like, God, I hope the fans know who I am. I hope they care. I hope this is a really cool night. And fortunately, the response was really, really good. And I remember that after the cameras or after Takeover had ended, I was walking up the stage, and the crowd was chanting, and I had turned around and said, you know what, screw it. I'm gonna do Adam Cole Bebe. That's my shtick. And when I did it, and then they all yelled it with me, I was like, I can't believe this thing has stuck so well. So yeah, it has been very surprising, but I'm very thankful for it, because that's definitely one of the things that people know me for.
Yeah, it's great to see those elements you're doing with Undisputed Era. But in your opinion, what has made Undisputed Era become one of the modern classic stables in the WWE?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing by far is legit the brotherhood that all of us have had. You know, I've known Kyle O'Reilly since 2009. I've known Roderick Strong since then, Bobby Fish since then. You know, we had a very real connection, you know, as a group. And I think that really shined through. I think that's why people looked at us as a genuine group, a genuine faction, because that friendship was there. So I think that played a really, really big part in it.
So that must be emotional for you to be going through what's going on NXT the past few weeks with Kyle and Roderick just yesterday.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, again, whether it be as opponents or teammates, I have in some way, shape, or form been working with or been involved with Kyle O'Reilly, Roderick Strong, and Bobby Fish. Specifically Kyle. Like I again, when I say I've been married to Kyle since 2009, I mean that. We have gone through wars, and we have stood side by side. We have you know, fought each other all across the United States, in the Tokyo Dome, in Japan, in Europe. I mean, you name it, we've done it. So of course, to see something that we built and that we created, and it turned into something as special that we had, it's very emotional, very emotional.
So is it safe to say that that's the end of Undisputed Era, or is it Adam Cole that's undisputed?
You know, it's an interesting time right now, because, you know, I have said before that without Adam Cole, there is no Undisputed Era. And I do stand by that. Is it finished? I mean, I don't know. Are we going to have new players involved? I don't know. There's a lot of questions and a lot of answers that are coming very, very soon. I can promise you that. But big changes going on in my life and in NXT's life right now.
And the only thing I want to see in the weeks to come is Adam Cole holding that championship belt. What does the NXT championship means to you, Adam?
Means everything to me. Means everything. And first of all, I'm so glad you said that, because that's what I want. You know, nothing more than to regain the NXT championship. And partially, aside from the fact that the listed names who have held the NXT championship are your top tier, top of the line talents. I mean, some of the best wrestlers in the world, you know, Samoa Joe, Finn Balor, Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens, you name it, the top of the top have held this championship. But for me, as NXT champion, I feel like that's when I truly got to showcase what I'm capable of. Like specifically that month of November, you know, leading up to Survivor Series, where I fought Daniel Bryan and I fought Seth Rollins and I fought Pete Dunne on Survivor Series the night before, 24 hours before. You know, Tommaso Ciampa threw me off the top of a steel cage through tables. That was such a crazy month for me. And that whole time I was carrying the brand, carrying the torch, carrying the NXT championship. it's huge. It's very, very important to me. I want my legacy to be solidified as one of the greatest NXT champions of all time. I think I've already done that, but I think there's more that I can do with that championship.
Yeah. My last question will be, when you do eventually do that, will the fans ever see you on the two main brands?
Oh, I think it's very possible. You know, I've said before that, you know, getting the chance to go to Raw or SmackDown is very exciting. Getting the chance to wrestle on a WrestleMania card is very, very exciting. But at the same time, I've always made this very clear. I'm really proud of what NXT produces. I'm proud of the roster there, and I'm proud of where NXT is going. There's something really exciting and really cool about being involved in something that you really do believe in. And NXT is something I really do believe in. So I'm enjoying myself. I'm having the time of my life in NXT, and I'm in no rush whatsoever to leave at all because I love it so much. But of course, in pro wrestling, you always say never. Is it possible that I show up on Raw? Is it possible that I show up on SmackDown? Most definitely.
Yeah. Thank you, Adam. Thank you very much. Can we have
Thank you.
Adam Cole Bebe from Malaysia?
Of course we can. Of course we can. And this specifically, this is for Malaysia. Adam Cole, baby.
Thanks, Adam.
Of
Was
course,
an
man.
honor. Thank you very much.
Pleasure to talk to you.